Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. There's a lot being said about sustainability at the moment, and quite a lot is happening in vineyards and wineries. In the supply chain, it's not as advanced. There are a lot of good words, but not as much action. What's great is that Muriel has done something practical, which is working in London as a very effective indication of the possible way forward to make sustainability so much more relevant for all of us. Muriel comes from a family of winemakers in Bergerac, and she's the founder of Borough Wines in London, where she initiated the straight from the barrel concept in 2002. And then over the following 18-20 years, she developed that further. I taught her a lot about running a sustainably focused business. And then in 2019, she swung the spotlight onto wholesale and to solutions that fully embrace the circular economy, to raise the bar for the trade and push sustainability standards that are both achievable and impactful. And that was the birth of sustainable wine solutions. The following year, it launched a bottle return scheme through a partnership with Damien Burton of Langora Barton. And in December last year, SWS was awarded a special commendation for best logistics and supply chain green initiative at the Drinks Business Green Awards. And there have been various other recognitions of this pioneering work. But let Muriel explain it all. Over to you, Muriel.
Thank you very much, Liz, for the introduction. And hello, everyone. And thank you for coming and joining and for your interest in this new supply chain. So let's start. So basically about us, but I mean, Liz has said pretty much everything. We started at Borough Market in 2002. We were in retail. We pioneered wine on tap for refill. And it was very successful because all of a sudden consumers were coming to wine shops but a lot more regularly. And on the back of this, we got really interested in what wine on tap could offer to the on-trade and to other retailers. We decided in 2019 that to move out of retail to focus solely on this new supply chain, and we went from Borough Wines to sustainable wine solution. The thing is that obviously in 2020 we were hit by COVID like everyone else, and we had to be inventive. What was really important to me was to keep the team and not to furlough people. And we managed, in order to do that, we developed some concept like we launched a bottle deposit, we launched a sampling service for the trade. So basically, if you probably had some of our samples, so you can see on the picture all the tubes. So basically wine merchants from all over the world would send us some samples that we would retube. That was incredible because thanks to that, we managed to work with everyone in the UK. We partnered with the London Wine Fair. And it's at that time that basically we pushed further what we were doing. So the time we had during COVID, because all of a sudden restaurants being closed, we lost 70% of our turnover. So this is when we pressed stop and decided to rethink how we were doing things. And the launch of the bottle deposit scheme is part of that work. And it meant that now that we are going towards a new normal, we are basically a much stronger company, if you want. So a new supply chain. So with sustainability, basically, you can look at it from different angles. We decided that what was of interest to us was the circular economy, because you can go very far with it. So what does it mean? It means no packaging. It means being able to reuse kegs and bottles. and it means working with a regenerative viticulture. So that's basically who we are, Sustainable Wine Solution. So the approach from the vineyards to the glass, from grape to glass, everything has been thought from a sustainable perspective. And what we wanted to show basically is that we, by bottling and kegging in London, I mean, out of the area of production anyway, you are able to be a lot more sustainable, and it's possible to do it. And then it allows you to work with independent wine producers, big or small. And that was very important to us. So, of course, sourcing the wines is the first thing that's important, that matters in that concept. So we want to reduce waste and promote biodiversity at every step of the winemaking journey. And so we work in partnership with our winemakers, small and big. We've got a winemaker in London that works closely with them. So they work in a way, the way we want them to work. And we are giving them access to a sustainable way of working that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Reduce waste from, so obviously when you import in bulk, you have, you use 55% less CO2 compared to shipping in bottles. So the way it works is that winemakers send us wine in 1,000-liter container, and then it arrives in the UK, and we reuse the tanks. Before Brexit, we were able to send back the tanks to France or Italy or Spain. At the moment, we can't, but that's something that in 2023, we will try and do again. Then what was very important to us is to, the issue of packaging is a real problem. And in the way we work, we manage to deliver wine to our customers without any plastic, without any cardboard. So the wine is delivered in plastic crates that are reusable, and they can live for a very long time. Everything is tracked. We have zero foil on the bottles. We use sustainable cork. And our kegs, we are the only one basically to keg in reusable kegs. So the key to everything we do is the reverse logistic. I mean, if you want to work the way we do, it's really important to be in control of the logistic. So we do it in-house, it's our own van. Within the M25, we deliver in electric van. So it's full van in, full van out. When we deliver, we collect what has been emptied. And because it's our own van, we are able to train the drivers on not using any packaging. And it works. We do not have any breakages. Choose to reuse. Well, reuse is better than recycling. I think it's not always obvious to people, but that's true. I mean, and it kind of makes sense. You use less resources. Now, zero waste format. So we've got 3 zero waste formats. We've got a bottle return. So it's a standard bottle in 75 centiliter. We've got a 10-liter vino tap, which is basically a zero waste bag-in box. And then we have a sustainable wine keg, which is a sustainable 20-liter keg. So now if we focus on the bottle, so as you can see, if we deconstruct this bottle really, we've got a white mark on the bottle. And the idea of the white mark is so that everyone knows that this bottle is to be returned to us. Because otherwise, how do you know? So this is one of the challenge that I think is, how do you communicate to your customer that this bottle needs to come back to you? And So we thought that the white mark was very clear message. So yes, the bottles are delivered in the crates. We talked about that. We've standardized the number of bottles we use. So we've got a Bordeaux bottle, a green Bordeaux, we've got a green Burgundy, we've got a white Bordeaux, a white Burgundy. So standardization is a key to this new supply chain. And I think in the 80s and 90s, when people stopped bottle deposit scheme, it was because there was too many bottles, there was too many choices. It was an era where people wanted choice. Everyone wanted to use a bottle as a way of expression. And that made it impossible to run bottle deposit schemes. Now, if we look at the bottle, so that's the white mark I was talking about. When we started this project, bottle manufacturer told us, first they told us that we couldn't do it, that the bottles were not, that they couldn't guarantee that the bottle would work well. Then they advised to go for 550, 600 gram bottles, which we did at first. And then as soon as we started doing our own logistic, being in charge of the reverse aspect, I decided to use a lightweight bottle. Because at the end of the day, we need to understand why we do things. And if we're really serious about having an impact, if you are using a bottle that's double the size, the weight of one-way bottles, then what is really the point? However, by using a lightweight bottle, it means that whenever the bottle doesn't come back to us, at least we are not causing any more waste. And also we realized, so we did that, but we could only do that because that's a decision I made, and I decided to take, I mean, you know, it was my responsibility, basically. If it had not worked, well, so be it, it would be on me. And however, what we realized is actually we do not have any more breakages. Because the way we do things, I mean, it's like it's a on driver, it's a short loop. The bottle comes back to us within 2 or 3 weeks. So there is no reason really to have a heavyweight bottle. So that was great. Now the Vinotap. So the Vinotap, in fact, we wanted a solution, a refill solution based on our experience at Borough Market. We could see that at the origin of this project at Borough Market, I wanted to have a solution, a wine that I could sell at the time at £5 a bottle to compete with supermarket. And I mean, how do you compete with supermarket when you are a tiny independent? And I realized that, in fact, the only way I could do it was that if I removed, well, basically, when you sell a wine at £5 a bottle, when you think that in the UK, you've got, if you include the VAT, you've got about £3 of taxes, then it doesn't leave. And if you remove the cost of the bottle and bottling and cork and this and that, it doesn't leave very much for the wine itself. So I convinced my winemakers, the independent, you know, small vineyards I was working with, to sell me wine in bulk. And I say, listen, you can say no, this is the price I'm offering, but I think if you said yes, we won't put your name because we don't want to devalue your brand. We were going to say it's Borough Wine's house wine. But at least it will create footfall, and it will allow us to improve quality while selling, you know, wine for £5 a bottle. And that was obviously very, very successful because customers like to be close to the product, especially at a time when people of globalization, and it was like mid, you know, 2005, 2002, 2005, when people started traveling, and so they were coming back from holidays. They knew, they had visited all those vineyards. They were really interested in, they understood. And that's one thing I would say about the UK market, is that it's very, very interesting because people are very, very curious and very knowledgeable and open-minded. So it was great. So we got a great response to that concept. And then the idea was, how can we make it work for other shops and other convenience even? So the vino tap, by what you see the tap, basically, you can remove it like if it was a USB key. So we just sell that to our customers. That's what they buy. They buy the taps. And then they pay a deposit on the bank. And it's not even, they pay a deposit and then we send them the kegs. It's like bag-in-box. It's the same size of the bag-in-box. It's very slick. It works with a small bottle of gas. The wine is top quality. It's preserved very well. And again, consumers are used to this idea of going to their shops with their own bottle. So that was it. Then, in fact, when we talk about wine on tap, especially for the hospitality industry, we talk, well, basically we mimic what's been happening in the beer industry. But we wanted something a bit more to distance ourselves from the beer market a little bit. We wanted a keg that was not going to make any noise when handled, because although pubs are used to dealing with draft beers, lots of restaurants and a lot of our customers, in fact, started in business with the craft beer movement. And craft beer movement at the beginning was about bottles and good quality bottles. So they're not necessarily used to all this draft equipment. And I think it was really important to think about the convenience of how would they react and what would it mean. And so we went for this keg, which is very practical. It's 20 liters. It's not too heavy. And that's it. And so that's our 3 formats. So all our wines are available in those formats. And I insist on wine on tap, because wine on tap these days is really where the value is, if you want, whether it's refilling in the off-trade or wine on tap as a by the glass solution for restaurants and hotels and bars. It's very convenient, speed of service. I mean, you've got all the list here. And what we are offering is it's a zero waste solution, because we didn't always offer a zero waste solution for wine on tap. We started with plastic kegs, and everyone is familiar with key kegs. And it's true that the technology of the key keg is absolutely fantastic. So it was a big revolution for us when key keg, we started hearing about key kegs, because it's a big improvement on bag-in-box. I mean, I'm not here to, to criticize bag-in-box and stuff, but in our model, key keg was a step forward. However, what I realized very quickly is that we were creating a new problem. Restaurants were calling us and saying, we don't know what to do with those key kegs. The recycling company won't take it. The borrower won't take it. No one wants to deal with it. And also it illustrates this global problem, basically, of, okay, it might be recycling in Holland, but it's not recyclable in the UK, or it might be. So it's all the thing about recycling. It's another thing about sustainability. It's so much smoke and mirrors. Basically, you can never trust what you read. What you read is not what it is. And so all of a sudden, we had gone with those one-way kegs. We thought it was fantastic and stuff. And then we were faced with a problem where no one knew what to do with it. And when you launch a new way of working, you don't want this type of problem. You want to be able to talk about wine quality, about convenience, about savings, about how great it is. You don't want to have an hour discussion about what to do with the empty kegs, And so that's when we looked at what to do, and we decided to use reusable keg, which at the beginning I was not too keen on doing. The reason I was not too keen, I thought in terms of quality control, in terms of all of it's another work. It's basically like having a winery in London, which at the beginning that's not what we were. But we felt that we could do it. And first, coming from a family of winemaker, I'm not scared of wine. And I say that with all, it's not scary, basically. It's just different. but so I thought, okay, we could do it. We've got to employ a winemaker, because very quickly, you know, it's not just about plumbing. I mean, it might be tempting to think that the only person you need is a plumber because we are not making wine, but there is a lot more to it. And I think especially when you are promoting a new way of drinking, it's really important to have a success story. You can't gamble. I mean, I'm a gambler, but that's something I wouldn't gamble on. I just wanted to be sure what we were going to do. So that's why we started. We started with this, and Wine on Tap, basically, especially now, is a way for all those, especially now that we are faced with such a high inflation. It's a way to basically, because you have to compromise. Do you compromise on packaging? Do you reduce cost, or do you reduce packaging? That's basically what it stands to. Do you reduce quality, or do you increase price? What do you do? And I think that increasing prices is a no-no. I mean, I don't have a restaurant, but if we had restaurants, and when we talk with our customers, they know they can't do it, because come a point, especially coming out of COVID, you know, okay, people are happy to go out for 5 minutes because they haven't been able to do it. But at the end of the day, it's quite nice to be at home with friends, you know. So I think that we come a point of the market where if we want to encourage people to keep going to restaurants, you can't increase prices. And you shouldn't decrease quality, because that would be a mistake. And so Wine on Tap is that compromise, is giving the opportunity to the trade to basically keep quality without having to increase prices. So let's talk about wines, because that's kind of what it's all about. I realized actually recently that I talk more about sustainability than wines, but that's, you know, let's address that. So there are two things to bear in mind. Is that, for one thing, it seems that 90% of all wines produced, and I read that in some reports, I didn't make it up, 90% of all the wine produced are packaged when they are ready to drink. So if that's the case, then they can be imported in bulk. And so that's one thing. So in terms of, okay, how are you limited? You know, can you import loads, not loads, and stuff? So first, 90% of wines can be imported in bulk, in small bulk anyway, for bottling and kegging in outside of the area of production. The second point that I'd like to insist on in terms of sustainable wine solution is that we took inspiration from the natural wine movement. And I say that with, as I say that, I'd like to say that I'm more interested in the movement itself, in what it did in terms of getting young drinkers to drink, than the wines themselves. I mean, I'm not here to criticize or not natural wines. I'm not. Our model is not. We are not just selling natural wines. It's only represent, you know, a small percentage of the range. However, I think in terms of the wine trade, that we've got a lot to learn from that movement. I mean, that's incredible. I'm so impressed by the way they approach the market. They were irreverent without completely being, you know, it's kind of like, it was very, very clever what they've done. And in our approach, we want that. We kind of like decided to take a bit from that, which means work with loads of small and bigger winemakers who are close to nature, who whether they are biodynamic, organic, natural, people drinkers can relate to. And also, because at the heart of a natural wine anyway, natural wine is about wine with a personality. And I think we spend so long trying to have wines that not tasted the same, but yes. And that's not what wine drinkers want. I mean, or people will move away from wine, which is also okay. But personally, I'm really interested in sharing wine with you know, new drinkers. So our winemakers, because you might think, and that's a question I'm being asked a lot, how do winemakers react to this kind of way of drinking? Because I mean, it takes, they were not doing it before. And so we for us, first, it's true that the partnership with Damien Barton was very, very key. Because then again, I mean, and Damien helped us develop quality control processes, buy the equipment for the winery and stuff, because I thought I want to go, I want to aim for the top. It's not about, you know, we need to, if we are doing it, it's because we want to show that it is scalable. I'm not interested in doing it because you know, I pretend to be winemaker and have got a few customers and stuff. I mean, if I was younger, probably, but at my age, if we are doing that, is because we want to do a kind of a live experiment to show that it can be scaled up. So it's really important to have serious winemakers on board, because then it means quality. It means that all of a sudden, if it's good enough for Damien Barton, it's good enough for everyone, as far as I'm concerned. And it really helped attract new winemakers, and making the bottle part of the solution meant that when we speak to winemakers, all those wines producers, we say, well, it's the same as what you do now, except that we'll do it in the UK. And we control everything, and the wine is going to be bottled, and it will be your name on the bottle if you want to, because it's not about us, it's about you. And they're all very keen, because sustainability is very important to all of them. And of course, they've got the wine they do at the work, sustainable work they do at the winery. That's one thing. But we are talking about something else. We are talking about distribution, and to be able to access a market like the UK with such a project is really interesting for them. So so again, just in case you had not understood that wine on tap is great, let's reiterate. You can so better wines, better value, of course. We've got a bistro range, which would be quite house. We've got organic wine, we've got natural wines, artisan wines, and it's all, winemakers' wines and wines with a personality. And wines with a personality sounds like a slogan, and it means everything and nothing, but it's true that I think the big evolution now is that people are working a lot more with natural yeast or culture yeast that kind of like still bring something unique to the wine. Market openness, well, sustainability basically, as you all know, is a key consideration for consumers now. And yeah, so that's, I think, I mean, there was a French study in 2019 asking businesses and consumers and stuff if they felt if sustainability was important to them. And it turns, and then the same study was done again in 2021. And it turns out, in fact, that in 2021, people have the same motivation as they had in 2019. The only difference, and I mean it's a major difference, is that all of a sudden we were put in a solution, in a position with COVID where we had time to think. And so whether you're a consumer, but even more professionals, I mean, if we talk, for people like me, the professionals market is a lot more interesting, because this is how you are going to change dependencies and habits. It's a lot easier to convince professionals than to convince consumers. I mean, that's not my specialty. And in fact, it's the same with the trade. Sustainability was in the back of their mind, but first, how do you do it? What do you mean? What, how do you do it? When do you take time for it? People don't want to be the first one to do something. However, now, after COVID, it's not when or if, or it's now. The time is now. And consumers want to work with companies that really care about sustainability, care about the planet, care about people. And so, but you know that anyway. So now, why does it work? So with sustainability, so why it works? Why does our model works? First, because we've been at it for some time. Actually, we've been at it for a very long time. And what we came to realize is that there is no one fit all solution. You can't approach all the markets in the same way. You really have to see what do you know, split the market, segment the market. How far can you go with all the different markets? And because you need your customers to adopt your model, they need to be interested in the environmental aspect. So sustainability need to be important to them, of course. Economic, it's one thing to say that consumers or everyone is willing to pay more for sustainability. Maybe they are, but I don't think it's a necessity. They shouldn't have to. And just because we can charge more for sustainability in people's mind doesn't mean that we should, especially if the end goal is to grow and to expand. And finally, it needs to be convenient, because changing habits, I mean, everyone knows how difficult it is to change habits. So if we want people to start to embrace a new way of working, you need to give them some very, very good reason to do it. And so that's why being strategic is about never push water uphill. Market do not all mature at the same time, and you need to focus on the success stories. So we find that, so this is why we target the market, the on-trade differently than we target the off-trade. The on-trade is particularly interesting because it's easier. So it's easier because, well, the elevator pitch is fantastic. We say to them, well, whatever we deliver, we collect back. You are going to save significant amount of money on recycling. You will not have one single cardboard box delivered to your restaurant. Your wine is going to be preserved better. I mean, what's not to like? And then the economic factor, the fact that wine on tap is more interesting from a financial perspective. And also, everyone knows that the on-trade have adapted a just-in-time stock management. I mean, they order 1 week, you know, they get deliveries every week. So most of their stock is drunk within 2 to 3 weeks, really. So that's a lot of bottles that end up in the recycling bin for no valid reason. Other than at some point someone need to say, okay, stop 1 second, and we could do this way, and it's be fantastic. So that's and especially now after COVID, with the challenges of the economy, with lack of resources, difficulty in acquiring raw materials and stuff. I mean, you know, we are knocking on the door at the right time. People are interested, and with the on-trade we get 80% return on the bottle. So that's great. I mean, that's like 80% is fantastic, and probably more, but we are happy with 80%. Off-trade, so for the off-trade, off-trade is independent wine shops, could be the convenience market, because more and more, I mean, I'm talking for the UK, but in the UK you see those convenience shops that you know, you can have a Spar that looks like Whole Foods or Harrods, you know. I mean, it's kind of like, you don't, it's like, so you've got all those array of shops that really know that the product sourcing is important and that customers want sustainability. So they love the Vinotap, because, and also the Vinotap, what it brings repeat footfall, and that's great. I mean, food, you know, it's a bit like the baguette in a French bakery. It's like, you know, that the baguette, they might not make that much money on it, but people buy it every day. So that's kind of like why the Vinotap is a fantastic solution for the off trade, and it has no hardware cost, except for taps, and so that's it doesn't take much space, so that's great. As regard to the bottle return, and also, I mean, I have to say that they were lifeline for the off trade during COVID, because this project, we wanted to launch it with restaurants, but they were closed, so we had to launch it with shops, and it worked. The only thing is that because we started quite recently with the off trade, with consumer, it's quite hard to get data because it might take them 6 months to bring back their bottle. I mean, it's my project, and at home I don't bring it every week. I don't bring back the bottle every week. It takes me a bit of time to get them out of my house, to take them back. So I think that consumer habits, it will take a bit longer. Having said that, they do bring it back. So let's see, but change, in my experience, often comes from the on-trade anyway. So in terms of strategy is let's focus on the bottle return, wine on tap with the on-trade, because this is where the success stories are. This is where the happy, you can really go far with this. And the off-trade, let's work with them and until the time comes when the market is mature. And that at that point, the multiple retailer will get interested. And I'm sure they are already interested, but it's, yeah. So also why it works. So here is basically a list to make it a bit more concrete. So, so it's a concept. We are selling a concept. People don't come to us because they like our Côte du Rhône or our Bordeaux. They come to us because they like our range of wines and they embrace our concept. So we kind of recommend, we expect people to take about maybe 10 wines in the range, but no less than 6 anyway. So we expect people to stock at least 6 wines in bottles. And wine on tap, we've got a model where we can finance the installation cost up to a point. I mean, it's a no-frill installation that we can do for free. However, we expect customers to go over a volume of 100 liters per week. It might seem a lot, but when you think about it, it's about 130 bottles, and that's not a lot in a casual dining environment or even fine dining environment. I mean, we've got fine dining restaurants, and people understand, they can compare what we don't necessarily recommend wine on tap for the house wine. So this is what's really interesting in terms 10 years ago or 5 years ago, yes, because there was still this misconception about wine on tap that you couldn't get the same quality as you would in bottle. But now that has gone, consumers are ready. They understand that the packaging doesn't really matter. I mean, people are ready for wine in can, bag in box, etc., etc. And where the real value for wine on tap is with this not premium, but the second tier of the wine list, if you want. That's where the real value is. And so they can really see, they can compare what they actually go through in terms of bottle and translate it. So we recommend 4 taps, so 3 still wines plus 1 frizzante, I mean 1 cocktail actually, we just launched. It's our equivalent, it's our own recipe of the equivalent of an Aperol Spritz on tap. That has been made with one mixologist we work with, and that, so if you have a busy place, 3 still wines on tap plus the Aperol Spritz, then boom, I mean, I shouldn't call it Aperol Spritz, we call it Spritivo actually, it's Spritivo, but and that easily done. We ask customers to pay a deposit on the draft equipment, and that's part of what we call the, to make sure that at the end, to make sure that basically this equipment doesn't end up in the landfill. We need the equipment to come back to us at some point, or not, but we need to have control over that. So by customer paying a deposit, there is this understanding that, I mean, as long as, we service the equipment, we maintain it. If the chiller stop working, we swap it. We are in full control of that, and I think that's a key to this. As regard to the bottle return, we've got a 50p deposit on the bottles that is added as a separate line on the invoice. So you might wonder why I'm mentioning that here. But the reason we are doing that is because we really want our customer, our trade customer, to play the game. And we do not want them to add 70% profit on this 50p, because what it means, it would mean an extra £2 on the bottle in the restaurant. And so we say, okay, these 50p, let's put them, and we also, to encourage them anyway, we say that if they reach 80%, we will cover the expense of the other 20% that they lost.
Oh, it might not be a priority. It's nice college. I mean, Manchester's above it on the list.
Yeah.
And other places. If you
okay, and so then no deposit on cakes. However, if they are not returned within 60 days, we will charge a deposit. And again, the reason we do that is because we want simplicity. We do not want to add a deposit every time we invoice a customer. That's too complicated. And our cakes are tracked anyway. We know where they are. We always know where they are. But what's important also is to make sure that you know where your equipment is, and we want it to come back to us. It needs to be, from a commercial point of view, from a sustainability point of view, it is really important that our assets come back to us quickly. Or not, or if not, okay, but we need to make sure that customers understand that it has a cost and it's expensive, and that they will be charged for it if they don't look after it and stuff. Then bottles are delivered in reusable crates, etc. A product service model. So more than a wine merchant, we are service providers. In-house reverse logistics service, which is key to this supply chain. In-house wine on tap installation and maintenance. Digital transformation for an optimized customer service. We've got an app, a B2B app, actually, where we are at the beginning of the journey with it. But the idea is to be able for suppliers, customers, to be able to communicate together. So there is a chat, there is all the information about the wine. I mean, it's kind of like created a community. Then trade customers can place order on that app. And I think technology and digitalization is so important for, the cakes and the crates are tracked. So that's, we really invested in that. Current clients. So we currently supply about 100 shops and restaurants, mainly in London, but not only. Basically, we deliver in London 3 days per week. We could go to 5 days, and very quickly it looks like we'll be doing 5 days delivery. We also go to the north of the country every 2 weeks. And we've got lots of customers in Wales, not loads, but we've got a full route of customers in Wales. We go to Leeds, and basically at some point, because people contact us, I mean, we don't necessarily have someone prospecting in Wales or Leeds or Manchester, but when people contact us, because we need to find a way to work with them, because it's only us at the minute. I mean, we are a group of one, and hopefully it's going to end up be different. More people are going to enjoy this supply chain. We're starting working with distributors in order to be able, to reach a bigger market. But we make it a point, like if you are wherever you are in the country, we will find a way to work with you. However, there are compromises. We don't send because we do our own delivery on reverse logistic. In the north of the country, we only go twice a month, and customers are fine with that, because I think they understand that in a sustainable world is a more organized world in a way. And like even in London, we use pre-COVID, we used to deliver next day delivery, and everyone was like, next day delivery, you order up to 4 o'clock, and 10 o'clock tomorrow morning you'll have your wine, you know. And it's great, but then especially in an industry as busy as you know, either you've got independent shops where the owner does everything, or you've got hospitality where you know, it's kind of, it can be stressful environment and stuff. So it's so convenient to you pick up the phone and next day you forgot to order your wine, you do it on the way home, and the next day they bring it to you. And we were like, we can't work like that. Oh, it's going to be one delivery a week. Of course, there is always emergency, and there are emergency, and we help people. We never let them down. But the idea is to work with them as partners and to establish this well-organized way of working. And the first 2 times they're like, wow, okay, they're a bit struggling and doing it last minute. But and eventually they're like, wow, it's so much easier. And it's true, because if you remove stress, because first you can remove stress from the workplace, which is not nothing. So what so, but at the moment it's about 100 places we work with. Making the bottle part of the solution again, it seems that people love, I mean, the bottle has been incredible for us. It kind of like, instead of just being someone on the margin, we kind of become more mainstream in terms of our offering, which is great. But in terms of category, for sure, 70% of our turnover is with wine on tap. So that's where we are now. And the profile of our customers is changing. For example, we work a lot with the creative industry, like theater, cultural venue, like museum, theaters. And in a way, it's interesting to know that, for example, the Art Council in the UK has added environmental responsibility as a condition for funding. And so we find that all of a sudden, by going with us, by embracing our supply chain, we are helping those venues in their effort to, you know, in climb the sustainability ladder. So we are getting more and more of those type of venue, and that's exciting. That's brilliant. I mean, to have your wine poured at the Royal Court, you know, that's brilliant. Then it's all this issue. That's a big question. That's actually the $1 million question. Can you scale up? Is this way of working scalable? Because if it's not, there is no point. But so first, I think the beauty of what we do is that we want to show that scales need to be flexible. You need to be efficient and flexible. It's not just about the big scale. It's not about just the small scale. It's about being efficient from a very small scale. And that's what people want. And also, yeah, it's not about big quantity all the time. It's about being able to be efficient. And scaling up by scaling out means that instead of all of a sudden having a massive factory somewhere in the countryside, like, it's quite interesting actually. I stopped on that because if you look at the brewer model, for a long time the brewers who had regional brewery, all of us at some point they thought, oh, it doesn't work, we need to be national, and they kind of like started having those big massive brewery, and they are walking away from that now, and they know more than we do. They know why, and so that's again what I'm talking about is that you want small loop. So you don't want too small, but a hub, for example, is efficient from a turnover 1.5, 2 million to 25 million. And 25 million is not nothing. It's not nothing, 25 million, you know? So it's kind of like great to be able to have that flexibility. But you don't want a factory, a big factory. You want a hub in Manchester, you want a hub in the south, so that's kind of how we can scale up. It would be by scaling, that's one thing. And then in terms of distribution, the key to what we do is that we are able to work with our distributors, because the market in the UK, I'm sure all of you know, is really, you've got, for example, Bibendum, you've got Matthew Clark, you've got, then you've got endless supply, everything from soft drinks to spirits to their drink suppliers. Then you've got the more wine specialists, like Enotria. Enotria is a big one. But those guys, they can't offer what we do. And we are no competition to them, because there is no way someone is going to dump Enotria to come to us. That's not going to happen. I mean, unless, I don't know, maybe, but we don't necessarily want that to happen, because we cannot do what they do. However, instead of them trying to do what we do, because all of a sudden, you know, someone at the board has enough of all their sales rep telling them, oh, people want wine on tap, they want sustainability, what do we do? And then they read an article about us and they think, okay, let's do it next year, you know? And then you end up with a mess everywhere. So I'm much more interested in working with those people, working with all those distributors. And we are already in contact with a few. One contract has been signed with in Scotland with Circularity Morton, for example, which is a big distributor there. And then in that way, it's fantastic, because you know that you can scale up, and you know that this way of this new supply chain makes sense. Outcome. So for us, it's really raising quality in a challenging economic environment. I think quality and sustainability, increasing sustainability, reducing waste, and making system change simple. And I think this is really my big thing. For me, it's very important to make sure that we can show that system change is possible, and that it doesn't have to be complicated. Now, better together. So that sounds like yes, it's planning for a more sustainable tomorrow. So we're starting a social enterprise called Rethink How We Drink, and it's a way basically where we know actually it's not. And in fact, the main thing, what are we trying to do? We want to share the burden of innovation, for one thing, because until now we've been self-financing and spending a lot of money on innovation over the last 10 years and stuff. And there is still so much more to do, and we can't do it on our own. And I don't think anyone should do it on their own. I think it's more something that needs, because when you do it on your own, you do it with your private heart. And I mean, like a lot, and in fact, we started thinking about this social enterprise because spirits company came to us and asked us if we could help them with the logistic, or if we could help them with the refillable solution. And then I was like, wow, if I go to my shareholders and I tell them that we are turning, the company is pivoting towards logistic company, they're not going to be that happy, actually. I mean, it's not our role. We are wine merchant, and sustainable wine solution needs to make money selling wine. But you can't not if we are serious about sustainability, we need to make sure that we contribute to solutions that are going to benefit everybody. And so the idea is to have together the local government. Government will come later, but right now at this stage, if we could work with the local government, that'd be, and we started anyway. Academics, because I think there is a lot of work to be done in terms of, first, how do you define sustainability? What do you put on a label? I personally think, but maybe I'm completely wrong, and I think that working with academic, we'll be able to decide if it's who is right. You know, when you start having some CO2 calculator on a wine label, I have a problem with that. Because, I mean, no offense to American friends, but if I start seeing a wine from California with lower impact than a wine from Bordeaux, I think that there is a serious flaw with the system. And so I think it's about having a holistic approach, and together having cross-industry as well, collaborating with the beer industry, with the spirits industry, the soft drink industry, with a cake manufacturer, and coming up with a marketplace of sustainable products that are accessible. I'm not just talking about price points, accessible in terms of available together, you know. So that's work in progress. Watch this space, and I'm sure, and if anyone wants to join, please. So that's a quote that we came across this week, and we love that quote. Quite why more restaurant don't do this is beyond me. It's economic for establishment and romantic for the customer. It sounds generous and lush. So yeah, I think that's a brilliant quote, because it often, and that's the thing, and that's the beauty of alcohol as well. And it's kind of it's fun. It's about fun. It's about romantic. It's about poetry. It's about all of these things. And often when we talk too much about sustainability or too much about you know, being sensible and all of this, we forget that sometimes that you know, it's nice also to just relax and stop thinking about things and just enjoy, you know. And so anyway, that's a quote that we like very much. And well, thank you very much. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Muriel. I think everybody's, it's been a very thought-provoking, I think, because there are a number of questions. I know we've hit 3 o'clock, so obviously a number of our guests may have to leave. But there are a few questions here, which I'll just run through quickly. Tal has asked about the average bottle price that you sell in the market.
So if you think about retail, it would go between 10 and 22. So it's quite we kind of want, you know, we don't have the fine wines, but we want to show that, and we don't have the cheap wines.
Okay. And Michelle's saying, I know it's on and off trade, but she was mentioning private clients. Do you have any private clients? Is it extended there yet, or?
No. So what we supply, we've got a couple of clients who started Milk Round, if you want, and it's a home delivery service. And I think for the bottle return, this is a future with consumers. So basically, those companies deliver their wines to the consumer's door. It's home delivery. Yeah.
I think you did touch on this because Wink was saying about Vino Tap being your trademark, and you see the whole, you know, how you see the whole reuse philosophy developing outside your company. But I think that is something that you can't touch on, didn't you? And obviously providing advice and your service to those people.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Wink. Yeah. And Trevor was asking about, you mentioned lightweight glass bottles being thinner, and then you said that obviously you'd eliminated breakages, and how he wanted to know how the connection was there between the two. So obviously thinner glass, you think you get more breakages maybe?
No. In fact, what I meant is that at the beginning, we were advised not to use lightweight bottles because we would get too many breakages, because that was what was happening in the 80s and 70s. However, because our processes are very gentle in a way, and the loop is small, you know, it goes in our van, then it comes to our warehouse, we get the bottle back within 3 weeks. And someone asked about so that's why, in fact, we were told we would get more breakages than with heavyweight bottles, but that's not the case. We don't. And how do you clean the bottles and kegs? Well, we got this, we've got a very efficient, energy efficient bottle washer where the bottle is cleaned in 3 minutes. It goes very high in temperature. It uses a very soft product. And it's actually a Canadian company. And what's interesting is that Gotham Project in New York, in the US, who are doing something similar to us, have the same equipment. So,
Okay.
And in terms of closure, we use a diam cork.
And they work well.
And it works very well. Yeah, and again, that's Damien Barton who advised on that. And,
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's all the questions there. Over to Liz, I think, to close the session.
Muriel, that was great. Absolutely fascinating. I think it's given everybody a lot to think about. And what's great is that this is something that is happening, and setting examples for others, and your willingness to collaborate and open up and share everything is where we should be going. So thank you very much for telling us about this. And I'm sure the recording will be shared by lots more members, so people can follow what you're up to. Thank you very much indeed.